Good morning, everybody. It's the 24th of September. How are you all? Have any of you felt this difference in energy? So, something that I noticed the other day, last week, most certainly, definitely felt heavy, and coming to this newness this week, we've got a beautiful tree outside where we have tuis, which are beautiful blackbirds with a little, like a little white bell here. They make the most magical um, songs. And it was like they were just in this tree. I haven't seen this in 4.5 years of living in our home. And it was like the birds were fluttering. They enjoying this new vibration. We're in this new energy. Speaking of which, I have been going through some of my old videos, and I highly recommend. There's one that I put together 2 years ago with the Council of Eight. They had shared about water consciousness. Now, as we know, water is who we are. Water is showing us so much of our changes. And we are, as I said, a body of water, which takes me into sharing with you that when we are crying, when we have an emotional release, and there were quite a few on our journey in Egypt. You know, often we berate ourselves. We don't feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, to share openly. And sharing is letting go. It's sharing our tears. How often do we shed tears? And there's an emotional release that happens. What do I mean by this? But first of all, let me explain to you what. And so I don't go off trajectory. I'm just going to read a little bit about. Do you know that we have three main types of tears? So I'm going to come back to the emotional because that's what I love to share. And I'm going to be sharing more about this change, this flip, which the flip is part of the letting go of the old, okay? The letting go of the old is the intergenerational trauma, the ancestral trauma, letting go in order to shift, to go through these ascension upgrades. These are the words that I'm really kind of fine tuning into, because sometimes we can get lost in words, myself included. I can get confused with words, as we know. Having said that, back to tears. We have basal tears. These are the everyday tears that keep our eyes lubricated. We have reflex tears. These are produced in response to irritants like smoke, wind, onions, or dust, and they wash away harmful substances or foreign particles from the eyes. And then we have our emotional, psychic tears. These are triggered by emotions of sadness, joy, stress, and relief. So often when I've had some of my old videos that have gone out, people say, how do you laugh and cry in the same minute? Well, tears are tears, guys. And it's a release. It's a release that I allow, and then I laugh because I go back into my jovial self. These tears, the psychic tears, your emotional tears, they contain more stress hormones and natural painkillers like endorphins than the other types. They may help regulate emotional balance and reduce stress. Now, let me give you an example. Many times when I've had clients that have come to me for a reading, what happens in the reading, it's not only about me sharing what I'm sensing or seeing in them and feeling what I feel in their body, in their vibration. When I share the information, there might be a moment, like think of it like a chord that is struck, and or a light switch that is flicked on or switched off. And they all of a sudden start to cry because the information coming through, whether it be from someone who has passed over, a lost one, they start to grieve, or whether it be from the Council of Eight, or whether it be just me feeling into their vibration and being shown that where there's energy that's held in their bodies. And the information comes through, and all of a sudden it's kind of like tapping on a, like I say, onto a nerve, and they start to release. And the beauty of releasing, so they might come in with physical pain. They might say, Michelle, I've had a sore back for years. I've gone to chiros, I've gone to physiotherapists. Nothing is working. And what I love, what I truly, truly love about me doing the work that I do is that there's always a sense of change. And I know sometimes for those of you who've had sessions with me, it's tough. It's tough looking in and allowing and feeling and being vulnerable. It really is, especially if you've been preconditioned to not be vulnerable, to not show up authentically, which I think a lot of us have. And the beauty of them coming in for a session, they allow, and then they leave, and they might say it might take another 2 or 3 days before the body starts to reformulate and go, I've held on to that for such a long time. Now I can let it go. So I'm going to go more in depth about emotional tears because, oh gosh, emotional tears, grieving, the losses that we go through, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, we just kind of store them over time. And when we let go, our bodies go, oh, our mind goes, oh my God, I've been holding on to that for such a long time. But our body has a big breath, which is awesome. So this is about going into the feelings, okay, of the emotional tears. These are the most chemically unique, our emotional tears, our psychic tears. There's stress hormones such as ACTH, and I ain't going to try and say the word, okay, because, okay, let me try. Adrenocorticotropic hormones. Prolactin, which is linked to emotional regulation. Potassium and manganese in higher amounts. Leucine, enkephalin, and endorphin that acts as a natural painkiller and mood stabilizer. Scientists believe emotional tears are the body's way of releasing stress and restoring balance. By shedding these tears, we may literally be expelling stress chemicals from the body while also triggering the calming effect of endorphins. So do you see how it's so important to clear the old, to allow yourself to grieve? Often men, women, children, teenagers don't like to allow themselves to grieve because we've been pre-programmed. I'm going to give you an example of pre-programming, and this is a personal story. Last week, my son, Cade, he has not been his best in his maths classroom. Now, bear in mind the teachers have 25 to 30 children in a class. He goes to an all-boys school, a really awesome school. And the teacher and myself and my husband, just from a date and time perspective, weren't able to align. Anyway, we aligned last week, came together. The teacher, who's also ex-South African that lives in New Zealand, one of our first meetings with him, he had shared with us, and I felt his grief in his heart. Excuse me, I got hiccups. Give me a moment. I'm going to gulp. Okay, hopefully they're gone. In our first meeting that we had, a teacher-parent evening, he said to us, he's new to the school, and he said sometimes, Cade can be a bit of a jack in the box, and he jumps up and down in class, and he just does what happens, and behavior, remember, good behavior, bad behavior, you still get the attention. And we've been working with my son, he's 15, with regards to what he's feeling emotionally. And this teacher said, sometimes I just want to take Cade and he's expressing, so we're allowing, and he's saying, I just want to take him and shake him and say, do you realize what your parents have given up for you? You've come to a new country, you've come, and remember, we're always talking to a part of ourselves. That I felt his heart. I could feel like this. When I feel grief, there's like I'm shown it's a pain. And I felt this pain. And when I said, thank you for sharing. We understand. How can we move forward? Anyway, move forward months and months later, we get to the meeting last week. But when I walked away from this meeting, I said to my husband, did you hear his words? This man's in pain, and there's an energy between him and Cade that he's expecting Cade to behave in a certain way because he's given up a lot, and he knows that we too have gone through this transition, this change of immigration. And yes, we give up. We give up the thoughts. We give up we grieve deeply when we, in my opinion, in my perspective, we grieve hugely if we allow ourselves to grieve when we move countries. And because everything that we know, our family, our African origin, our people, we let it go. So he's coming from his place of perspective. So to go back to last week's meeting, my son was standing behind us and there were 4 adults in the room. He chose to bring a head of department and 3 men, including my husband. Cade was standing behind us. We're in a little room and I can feel the energy with everybody. And this teacher was very nervous. The head of department, quite calm. My husband, he was in his space. My husband's a very protective Cancerian male, and I love him for it. But I'm also teaching him he's very strong in when he delivers, when he, like, look at my face, when he delivers words. And I said to him, sometimes that can be combative, just be calm. So we're all learning. I know I can be passionate. I don't get all my shit together. Please know that. Anyway, so I said to the teacher, what is the issue? What's the personality clash? In his opinion, there was no personality clash. Cade's doing this, Cade's doing that, and I said, guys, good behavior, bad behavior. Clearly he's not happy. I looked at my son and I said, okay, Cady, would you like to share or would you like me to share what you shared with me? And he said, it's okay, Mom. I said, would you like me to share openly? Now I've got his permission, his buy-in. And I spoke very clearly, I spoke calmly, and I said, okay, so in his opinion, he's not learning, he's not understanding at times, and we know you've got a big class, but in his opinion, you're not explaining things correctly. So he starts to jump and then he wants to go to the bathroom, whatever, which is annoying the teacher. But there's other things to it. My son hasn't arrived with his pencil, his ruler, his calculator. So there's a defiance, there's a clash that's happening, okay, an energetic clash. Anyway, my husband then asks him to explain an exercise that they did in class so that we had more of an understanding. Please know that I think I've shared this openly before, I'm not great with maths. My husband is. I'm really good with emotions, vibration, frequency, and getting words incorrect at times. Anywho, so my son's standing behind me. Now, obviously, his hormones are, he's going through his growth. He's in his, oh my God, what is it? You see, here I go. Puberty, there you go. And so I turned to him at one time and the meeting's carrying on. And eventually I turned to him and I can see his lips starting to tremble. And I said to him, it's okay, my boy. And my husband felt uncomfortable because he just did. And my son felt uncomfortable. And I said to both of them after this meeting, fast forward, because Katie said to me, Mom, please don't say that to me, because he obviously wants to come across as being strong. But I could see his lip quivering. And I looked at all the men and I said, guys, how would you feel if you're 15 sitting with 4 adults and having to speak up? Just bear in mind he's 15 and we're all adults here. And collectively, we're probably over 100 years of age, if not more. And I looked at the head of department who was sitting opposite me, and he looked up at Cade like this. And this teacher had big tears in his eyes, big tears. And this is a man who's probably in his late 30s, early 40s. And we left it where the meeting ended amicably. We all on the same page. We all want the same thing, supporting my son, which is wonderful. We climb in the car. My husband then said to me later on, Michelle, you Kay didn't like what happened. I said, well, why did it make you uncomfortable? Who did I remind you of? I always go to the emotions because that's my way of reflecting, because I'm okay, but I'm also okay to listen to my son. So that night we teach our kids, be honest. It's challenging being honest. We all somehow on some level seek honesty, but when we speak honestly, most times we take it personally. So that night, I went to my son and I said, I'm so proud of you. And he said, thanks, Mom. He said, Mom, in future, please don't say it's okay, boy. And I said, I get it. I said, I apologize for saying that to you. I said, but I'm going to be your protective mother until the day I die. I'm your mom, and that's who I am. Whether you like it or don't like it, I wasn't saying it to you to throw you under the bus. I said, but did you look at your head of department? And he looked at me and he said to me, Mom, did he have big tears in his eyes? It looked like he was going to cry. So I said, yes. I said, so you know how you touched that man's life, because their perspective was this was the norm. A 15-year-old standing behind me and 4 adults in the room. I don't know about any of you, but the way I grew up, we were thrown outside the headmaster's class and our parents had the meeting and then we had to hear from our parents. So it's like this double whammy of like sitting there in fear. Now, of course, he's got fear. He's 15. You know, we're teaching him to be open, but I keep saying again, he's younger than all of us. So that was why it was important to make that an understanding, to bring forth an understanding. And Kate said to me, Mom, wow, he had big tears. And I said, yes, my son. You never know how you're going to touch people's lives and hearts. And I said, you were so brave, so incredibly brave for standing up with all of us. So I said, so it wasn't about me throwing you under the bus. I just wanted to let you know that I had your back. And I noticed, I said, Katie, this is what I do. I notice when your heart is feeling, I feel your vibration. And obviously I do have very good observational skills. So you've changed that man's life in some small way. You've brought some understanding. And he said, wow, Mom, I thought so. And then when I shared that with my husband, because my husband hadn't noticed that at the time, but then we spoke about it, I think the day after or something like that. My point being is that you never, ever, ever, ever know that when we're coming through in a calm space where we all want the same thing, which is what I truly believe, that we're walking into this new vibration. It brings me back to what I was sharing with how the birds, this new energy that we're in. I know a lot of people, channels like myself, different psychics, so many people are probably saying, we're in this new frequency, we're in this new energy. We're here to be human, guys. We're here to continue the human journey. So the learning is, how are you showing up in your vulnerability? How are you allowing yourself to let go of the loss, to let go of the grieving? I'm here for you, and I'd love to walk the journey with you. And this is part of what the learning is, teaching, because I love to teach. I love to give you tools. I love to give you some knowledge about, hang on, this is how life happens. And how life always happens perfectly. Life being the universe, life being divine, life being source, life being our lives. We are life in ourselves. We are our own organism, each and every one of us. My skin tone is different to your skin. My wrinkles will be different to your wrinkles. My touch might be different. But this is part of the unity. This is part of the union. This is part of the universe. And this is what I love, is that nature showing us too. It's showing us all the time. We are nature. How are we tapping into that nature? So I'm super excited to continue this work, continue this journey. Please, if you have the time, go and look at the old channelings, because they're old, but when the Council of Eight speak, they speak in the now. And we are a body of water, and the water is bringing a lot of cleansing. The water is a consciousness. Water is consciousness in its own way. And it is. That's what I'm just being shown right now. It is. So I'm pretty enlightened about life. How are you feeling the joy? How are you showing up in the expression of yourself? How are you being brutally honest? Because honesty is our truth. Honesty is the way we walk forward. Honesty is how we show up for one another. And we might not like to hear what the other person has to say. But when we take it on and then we kind of let it go, we let it go. And then we feel lighter, which is pretty spectacular. So I'd love to invite you to allow me to walk the journey with you, to help you with your emotional tears. I'm really, really good at that. And my website is www.michcarpenter.com. And I recommend that you go and download my book about spiritual awakening, a lot of information in there. And I look forward to seeing you soon. I love you all, and I honor you all for walking this journey of being human. And remember, over and above all, love is why we are here. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Take care. Ooh, those are new hearts. Bye, everyone.